Apprentice was the biggest thing on TV, and Trump, every other celebrity had a publicist that followed them around and said, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't use this. They'd try to shape your message. Trump's publicist literally just carried like a bag for him because Trump is going to do what Trump's going to want to do. He doesn't care. So he was a soundbite machine. I was with him 3 days a week. And when I wasn't with him, my boss would say, how do you get the next thing with Trump? We need him every day if we can have him. Because he's saying things like, remember the horrible stuff he said about Rosie? But every entertainment show couldn't wait to run that as a headline.
Of course.
Right? No one does this.
Billy Bush tells this hilarious story regarding Trump when he was on The Apprentice. If you don't know who Billy Bush is, he is actually a cousin to former President George W. Bush and Jeb Bush and that whole family. He also is the one who was in that leaked recording of Donald Trump saying, the whole thing has been taken out of context and used to character Trump. Well, he's going to go through a fun little story with Tucker Carlson. Before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to RTA News to ensure to YouTube that you are enjoying these videos and that they will continually show up in your feed, and then they'll push it out to more people. I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
Apprentice was the biggest thing on TV, and Trump, every other celebrity had a publicist that followed them around and said, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't use this. They'd try to shape your message. Trump's publicist literally just carried like a bag for him because Trump is going to do what Trump's going to want to do. He doesn't care. So he was a soundbite machine. I was with him 3 days a week. And when I wasn't with him, my boss would say, how do you get the next thing with Trump? We need him every day if we can have him. Because he's saying things like, remember the horrible stuff he said about Rosie? Every entertainment show couldn't wait to run that as a headline.
Of course.
Right? No one does this.
Amazing.
Except Trump. He's gold for ratings.
He's unbelievable. In fact, he's helped.
So I was constantly tasked with get on his plane, get into his apartment, go on a house tour with him. One of the great things I did with Donald Trump, still available online. Check it out. We went voting together in 2004, Bush-Kerry. And we went voting together, and we went to 4 different polling places, and he wasn't registered at any of them. It was hysterical, and he kept getting furious. So I just did all these things. And
did you have fun?
It was part of my job. Like, I got promoted. I ultimately became the host of the show because of the amazing things I did with Donald Trump. I dressed up in disguise and snuck into the season 2 auditions of The Apprentice. And I auditioned as a mustache, and I had a cowboy hat on. I called myself Richard Broom, and I made my way over to a table, and Donald was sitting at the table, and I sat down with 8 other strangers. And as he asked questions of everybody, to see if they'd be a part of the cast.
No way.
And he looks at me and he goes, "You're a weird looking fellow." You take off your hat. I took it off, and he goes, "If I don't know that's Billy Bush, I don't know." We had a huge laugh. I mean, let me tell you something. Donald Trump was the greatest reality television host ever. Ever. He was, especially for our show and for that show. That show began as something else, and it turned out, you know what? Why don't we, instead of doing 15 minutes of the boardroom at the end, let's do 15 minutes of stupid lemonade sales and then 55 minutes or 45 minutes of the boardroom at the end, because that's what people really want to see.
Because the drama.
The drama. Trump going, "Look, Brandy, I can't believe it. You look like, can you believe what Sarah said about you? It's terrible. She shouldn't say that about you. Sarah, you look like a nice person. Why would you do that to Brandy?" And he'd just pit these fights, right? And people loved it. Yeah. Amazing. This is a story that'll blow your mind. My brother is a great healthcare executive.
Yes.
Built a company called
Famous.
Athena Health. The chairman of his board at one point became Jeff Immelt, who became the chairman of my brother's board. My brother reported to him
From GE.
as the CEO. Yeah, and from GE, and GE, owned NBC long before when The Apprentice was just coming on. And Donald wanted his contract renegotiated, and he demanded, forget Jeff Zucker and the NBC people. I want Immelt to do this with me. I want the CEO of GE to do my second-year deal. And Immelt told my brother, he's like, if there were cameras at that lunch or a little hidden microphone at that lunch, I guess I would have been fired, because you just go with what Trump wants to go with.
Yeah.
And they were similar. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Because here's one thing about Trump. His loyalty isn't long. If I were to say to him, hey, how dare you talk like that? Like, I'm not going to be on this bus. You shouldn't say such terrible things. I'm leaving. And I took a moral stand and walked out or whatever I did. Get rid of Billy Bush. We don't like him. We're doing entertainment tonight only now. That's it. And then you're done. So literally my job, hired to, was to make sure we had him as often as possible and get great sound bites and kick.
Did you ever hear any NBC executives complain about him or his politics?
No, but I do know that, look, he was placated as every big star of every big show in the business is, all the way up to the, ivory tower. 100%. From Jeff Zucker to Jeff Immelt. The whole, here's a beautiful irony. Jeff Zucker, who I like, was running the show at NBC Entertainment. He's the one who he built this. If Trump is Frankenstein, he built him in the laboratory. And they built this Apprentice and they made him the wheeling and dealing machine on his helicopter, this incredible image. Can you imagine a better image on network television crafted for you than that one? And Zucker then became, years later, the head of the resistance. The guy that built him then became the head of the resistance at CNN.
It's amazing.
It's amazing in a matter of 10 years. Like this recording of this bus tape that was I would have been fired. It had leaked out then for hurting the star. 11 years later, and a lawsuit over Miss Universe and whatever else, NBC feels completely differently about Donald Trump, and now it's get him at all costs. Get him out of this presidential race at all costs. I don't care who we have to push in the head.
That switch up is crazy.
And on the way, including Billy Bush, no problem. Get rid of him. So that's
what's crazy is that they kicked Billy Bush out because of the incident where Trump said that when you are in the position that I'm at, people will flock themselves to you and you can grab them by this area because they want you to, because of your status and what you can, or they think you can do for them. And I mean, that's so true. Everybody knows that. Women throwing their bras at the artist that they're in love with who's performing in their hometown. And like, this stuff happens. So like when he said that, wasn't like some eye-opening thing to the world, but they decided you take that and run with it in a negative direction to make him seem like he's a terrible person. So whether or not you take advantage of the opportunities given to you, it's a whole nother moral argument. But to act as if it's not a normalized thing and trying to characterize him as some creep and villain, that was a problem. And then him getting fired for that is crazy just because he was having a conversation with Trump.
It's an incredible... there was so much going on during that period that it of course, the tape and that one phrase still kind of hangs in the air, but the actual story never really got told. There was too much chaos.
No, it's never been told.
It was like the opening salvos of a war and like an atrocity was left unexamined.
No, and look, I was a sitting duck, right? It was a hot time. People were feeling really strongly, as they still are. Trump is, it's like country music, love him or hate him, right? I mean.
So what was that? So you move over, and that I just want to say this for the third time, that tape after you spoke to Rob about it, to your EP about it, the next day was never mentioned again for 11 years.
No, never mentioned again. It was intermittently over the years. Be like, God, that reminds me. Remember the time that Trump told me about that? But it was always about Nancy O'Dell. Maybe every 3 years or something.
Right.
Maybe 5 times total between 2005 and 2016.
The Nancy O'Dell part,
but always as a reference because Trump said something that reminded me of the whole thing.
Was Trump political, by the way? Was he regarded as political when he was the host of The Apprentice?
No, God, no.
Not at all.
The idea that if you want to talk about just bad luck in general, the idea that Donald Trump in 2005 would one day run for president, and he's talked about it forever, but he would do it to just mix things up.
He called me right before he announced and said, I'm going to announce, and I laughed.
Yeah.
Because I'd known him all these years, and I thought of Trump as a person who was not serious about politics, who was going to use it to sell a book or promote a show or whatever.
Or reboot the image after The Apprentice had run its course.
That's
it was very successful.
So I literally laughed at him when he called me. I was in the car. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And he was totally calm. And he said, yep, I see what you're saying, but I think this time I'm going to surprise you. and he sounded totally different. But I agree with you. You knew him much better than
When
I
he
did.
came down the escalator, I said, "Oh my God, this is gonna."
And the story goes on and on. We know what happens. He runs, he wins, he has the whole 2020 situation, biggest comeback in history, and we're all happy about it. But no, this is interesting to hear about the backstory with Billy Bush and how Trump was. He was so funny, and I like that. That's what people like about Trump. It's like, okay, you're gonna act this way around me. You're gonna treat me this type of way. Then okay, good riddance. I'm not going with you. I'm going with them now, and I'll be with them forever. You have to keep loyalty. You have to be loyal, which is fair. I think we all feel that to some degree. Obviously, Trump is just very hard hitting with it. It's just interesting to go take a look back and see that he was always the same person that he is now, the person that we all voted into office. So again, as usual, I've been saying this and I'm going to say it until he gets into office. We cannot wait for January 20th to come around the block. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment your thoughts down below, drop a like, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.